This is my four-wheel drive survival kit or grab bag, and I've curated it myself. In this video, I'm going to share why I think these are a great idea, and I'm going to go through what I've chosen to put inside. This is a pretty comprehensive kit, as you can see. Once we get to the end, I'm going to boil it down to just 5 items that I really think are important for everyone. So if you want a light version of this, we'll go through that at the end. You can take out vehicle insurance, roadside assist or recovery cover, and you can get health insurance, life insurance, ambulance cover. But if you're traveling remote, really remote, and you experience a dire emergency, what is going to keep you alive? The contents of this bag are designed to keep you and the occupants of your vehicle alive for 24 to 36 hours while you wait for rescuers, assuming you've lost access to your vehicle and all the contents inside it. It's all packed in there like a game of Tetris, so I'm just going to go through it as I unload it. Food-wise, most of the food in here is dehydrated hiking food. So with these, you just add water, French beef stew, cocoa rice balls and fruit salad, honey soy chicken, sweet and sour lamb. Not only are these very light, but they have a really long shelf life. So really, you're never going to have to replace them. So this bag isn't designed to be opened all the time. It's designed to be stowed away for that worst day of your life. And it's good if you can set and forget and just leave old food in it. Or sorry, long life food in it. The other food that's in here primarily is a couple of tins of tuna. You know, high energy, high protein, will fill you up. And again, long shelf life, so that's key. I've got some tissues, a small packet of baby wipes, and I think I've got, here it is, some hand sanitizer. So this is for fairly obvious human needs, you know, and just keeping clean while you're trying to survive. Over here, I've got sunscreen. So heat stroke, you know, dehydration, the sun's not going to help. You're going to want to stay protected. So I've just got some emergency sunscreen in there. I've got 2 different tapes. This is a general purpose cloth tape, and this one is rescue tape or silicone tape. Both quite diverse in their use. You know, that these are going to bond to a whole range of things. I like the cloth tape because you could potentially write on it if you needed to write a message as well. But yeah, this silicone tape, rescue tape, you know, they're handy for fixing cars and things too, so good to have. 2 different types of tape. I've got a compass in here. So I purposefully store this near the top because I might pull this out to have a play with my kids. One of the only items in here that I plan on getting out occasionally. But yeah, I enjoyed navigation when I was in Army Reserves and before that in Scouts. So it's a dying art form using a compass, but I thought if I'm going to include one, this is a good place to put it. Got a waterproof bag, which I'll talk about a bit at the end, like how you put together the bag. But yeah, that's one thing I keep waterproofed. Cord or rope, had this laying around and decided why not throw some in this kit. Use your imagination on how that could come in handy, hanging up things, tying things together, helping cast a shelter, something like that. I've got a couple of high visibility things. So this is some cheap webbing strap from Bunnings. This could be good for tying things together, but perhaps writing a message on, directing traffic this way, you know, drawing attention to your situation. The emergency's 2 kilometers down there, help needed, whatever. Whole range of uses for some simple webbing strap. Similarly to that, when I was a bit younger and a bit fitter, I did mountain bike riding, and I wore this as a safety measure. It's just a lightweight high-vis vest. I was going to chuck it out, and then I thought, hang on a minute, that could be useful for this kit. So with the reflective stripes, with the highly bright material, this is a great way to draw attention. So you might have an old sand flag, maybe some old high-vis clothing from work, make something useful out of it and put a little bit in your kit. There's three key themes the items in the bag are trying to achieve. 1, shelter and warmth. 2, hydration and food. And 3, drawing attention to your situation. You'll see as we go through the contents, many of the items tick a couple of these different themes. A multi-tool. This is a really important item for this kit. This is a Leatherman sidekick. So it's got the pliers. They'd be pretty handy, very important, and probably the main blade. A nice sharp blade. And if I can find it, the saw. So I've got a Leatherman Surge, which is a beefier one than this, doing my main camping duties. Dad actually bought it for me for my 18th birthday, so it's got some special value there, but I've got another one to put in this kit. This isn't something I'd skimp out on. Get yourself a quality multi-tool for this kit. The good thing about multi-tools is if you camp long enough and you're outdoorsy long enough, somehow they seem to accumulate. You might get one for a present, then you might find one, you might be inherited one. They seem to, I've got my old army ones still, but they come in handy and they seem to be collected. So yeah, hopefully you've got a multi-tool laying around that you can use. All right, I've got, back to drawing attention to yourself. We'll go through this. I've got some cardboard, yellow cardboard, and a number of writing implements. Got 2 black permanent markers, 1 green permanent marker, 2 ballpoint pens, 1 gel pen, and a mechanical pencil. So a lot of redundancy there in case things don't work or things don't go to plan, and something you can write notes on. Water purification. So this is a Life Straw. Is the brand Life Straw, and this is the membrane filter, and you can simply stick this in a puddle and drink if you wanted. I opted to go with this silicone water carrier with it. So these aren't cheap, I think probably about $80 in Australia for something like that, but I decided I didn't want to mess around. I wanted a quality water purification system in this kit. This syringe thing is part of the Life Straw. Essentially, you fill it with water and then it allows you to keep the membrane wet to sustain the life of the filter. So that just comes along. And I do carry the instructions for it in the bag. I carry my compass just so I've got the instructions. So, it's not something I use all the time. I want to make sure it works when I need it. Other water carrying stuff, I've got this collapsible jerry can, must be about 5 litres, maybe 3 litres. And I've also got this one too, which I found is a purpose-made one. Fill and Go water carrier. So that's from a survival shop or bushcraft shop. So I've got plenty of ways to carry water. You can imagine where your emergency is. You may know there's a creek nearby or river. You may be up near a peak and no water streams nearby. It's always best to stay with your vehicle, but if it's a situation of life or death, you want to be able to carry water with you. I've got a number of these survival blankets. So these keep you insulated and allow you to kind of use your body warmth to the best and probably stay alive. So you can, even if you need to bunker down just to conserve energy and live, then that's what these are for. I do find it funny that they've decided to put on these survival ones in camouflage, so it kind of goes against what you're trying to do with getting seen, and I doubt this camouflage pattern is going to save you from the bright shiny aluminium. Anyway, got those ones, and I do have another one of these. I saw this on an online store when I was putting together the kit. So this is the Bob Cooper Survival Help Survival Blanket. I always say it's good to have things that have multiple purposes, and this is one of those. I've got a signaling mirror, again, raising attention from the air. These are exceptionally effective at gaining attention on sunny, clear days, but they're more or less useless if it's overcast and cloudy. So there's instructions on the back of this one, the SOL. So I haven't opened it yet. I thought I'd keep it pristine and leave it in there. I found a great video of just showing just how effective these are. I'll put a link in the description, so check that out. But yeah, it's kind of old school and may seem like a gimmick, but a good signaling mirror is a great addition for this kit. I've got 2 tarps, both are 6x4. One's a more reputable camping brand and the other one's from Kmart. So again, they're light, they pack fairly flat. I carry 2 tarps. The idea is one could be used as a ground sheet, the other one a cover, or potentially you've got enough people that you want to create 2 shelters. That's what that's for. I've got an A4 folded bit of paper here with my next of kin details, emergency contact details, my medication details, my wife's medication details, some basic information. So if someone came across your position and you were totally incapacitated, then they've got something to identify you and work with. So this is really to the nth degree, just trying to increase your chances of when something really, really bad happens. All right, I might move the bag out of the way here. So we've got a billy can. This is an aluminium billy can, and I've put a lot of small stuff inside it. And just move this out of the way for the moment. This is a small stove using hexamine tablets. So this is what I used in the Army Reserve. Basically, the stove folds out, and then hexamine is a solid cooking fuel, very dense, burns very hot, burns for a long time. It's a little bit heavy, but it ensures in any weather you'd be able to cook a decent meal in conjunction with the billy and some water. You don't need to be that far from civilization to feel isolated and remote. You just need to be outside normal phone signal range. So with that in mind, the grab bag is only one half of the equation, and the other half is satellite communication. Because if you can't communicate your situation to be rescued, then you're just keeping yourself alive with the grab bag a couple more days and hoping that someone stumbles across your position. Satellite communication comes in 2 forms, 2-way and 1-way. 2-way communication is always better, like satellite phones and Starlink. This allows you to communicate your exact needs to rescuers to avoid wasting time and other resources establishing the situation and what you actually need. The alternate and a great backup is the personal locator beacon, a PLB. This is a satellite communication device that, when activated, sends a signal up to the satellites, down to the authorities, and the authorities will act upon every activation of the emergency beacon. So essentially, help will come if the signal's made it up and made it to authorities. I made a great video. I think it's a great video on personal locator beacons. I'll put a link to that in the description. But yeah, stack the cards in your favor by having good satellite communications within your convoy and having a grab bag. Now we're getting into the fun stuff. One video that I took a lot of inspiration with for putting this together was Andrew St. Pierre White's video. He's put together a kit similar for his overlanding builds, and he mentioned morale. Well, he said, use your imagination as to why you need to bring mints. And I was at the shopping center one day when I was sort of in the process of putting this together, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to put in some mints. So I figure on the worst day of your life, if someone came up to you and said, hey, do you want a mint? I'm sure having some kind of treat together, something to take your mind off things, a good idea. Anyway, take it or leave it, got some mints. The only other food to go really are these energy gel sachets. So these are a hiking thing as well. I've got them on special on Snowies, I think, just before I made an online purchase. I thought, I'll throw some of them in there. Yeah, who knows? Maybe that'll give you enough energy to stay alive. a little bit longer. I've got some lip balm and some zinc, so in combination with the sunscreen to stay well protected. I've got a torch, so I've got a little LED torch, and this takes a AA battery. Let's see if it works when I need it. Yep, okay, that's good. I've got 3 spare batteries with it anyway. If you don't have spare batteries with it, what you should do is turn the battery around so that it doesn't complete the circuit, and therefore it's not going to drain the residual charge or residually drain the battery. So yeah, have spare batteries or turn the battery around. Torch is very important. You know, you can make a fire, which I'll get to in a sec, but really, like, being able to see if the emergency is at night, then that's really, really important. Just like multi-tools, torches are something that if you can't go camping long enough, you seem to accumulate. You've probably got a bunch of them. Just put one in this kit. That would be my recommendation. So most people probably won't need to buy a torch if there's one's laying around. Let's talk about starting fires. I've got a few things here, one sec. Let me fish it out. All right. To light fires, I've got a couple of Bic cheap lighters. I've got some decent matches. The Samba ones at Bunnings won't cut it. You'll waste half of them and probably light yourself on fire instead. So get some decent matches. Actually, these are my old army ration pack matches. I had a box and couldn't bring myself to throw them out, so I've decided to put those in there as well. I've also got a ferro rod, so I quite enjoy mucking around with this. I've got another one in my camping kit, but I've got one in here dedicated just in case all else fails, or I need to give someone the ability to start a fire, or everything gets waterlogged. We've still got, you know, first principles, striking it like that. I bought these fire starters at a bushcraft survival store. They're called Mini Inferno All-Weather Fire. These are discs coated in all sorts of stuff that will harm you, and they burn hot for a really long time in all weather. So rather than mucking around with ones from Bunnings, I thought these are well contained, you know, fit for purpose. I've got some purpose-made fire lighters. So Mini Inferno. So with that, with a number of ways to light a fire, I feel comfortable that no matter what, I'm going to be able to create some shelter, some warmth, and raise more attention to my situation. Hydrolite, I go through these a lot when I'm camping. I've got some spare ones in here. So in an emergency, when stress levels are high, you're going to feel dehydrated. You're going to feel, as soon as the adrenaline wears off, you're going to burn yourself out. So stay hydrated, replenish your salts. I've got some hydrolite. Medication, so my wife and I's daily medication, enough for, you know, 3 days worth, 4 days worth. So that comes with us, and then this sheet also references this in case we're unconscious. So I bought a couple of sports whistles. I've got 2 in there because it was a 2-pack, and I don't play sport. I've got no other need for them, so I thought, oh well, I'll put 2 whistles in here. Pretty obvious benefit for gaining attention, but you know, you can imagine someone might be driving past, you may see someone in the distance, something like that, get on the whistle. In addition to the life straw, last thing in the billy here is water purification tablet. They say MicroPure Forte MF1T water disinfection. So 1 tablet of this actually does 1 liter of water in 30 minutes. So I had no other use for these tablets. They weigh nothing, so I put all of them in. Hikers use these often. People going backpacking and traveling a lot in different countries use them. So really, the water purification is really essential in this kit. Water is going to be the number one thing that you're going to struggle with in that kind of emergency, and that's why you need to be prepared. Think of your present self giving your future self a gift on what is probably going to be the worst day of your life. That's what you're doing by thinking about this in advance, curating a kit like this, understanding what's in there, so that on that worst day of your life, you've got something that you've made, that you've created, and you know what's in there, and you're going to know what you're going to be able to achieve. Stress levels will be through the roof. You might have a first aid situation. You know, doing this thinking in advance when everything's great, when it's calm, collected, when you're at home, things are going to work out better. If thinking about this stuff strikes a chord and we have a shared interest there, this is my camping cheat sheet. On it, it's got on the front considerations for remote vehicle emergencies and a remote pack list. So there's a lot of information in there. That's totally free. I'll put a link in the description to my website where you can download it. A couple of considerations I want to talk about. I've opted for this clear top canvas bag. You might consider a backpack. I think in vehicle emergencies, the general advice is always stay with your vehicle. I think it's unlikely you're going to need the straps on the bag. So having the kind of pure empty space to pack this game of Tetris in, I see that as a better benefit. I opted for orange because it designated emergency color. Most of my other bags are gray, olive drab, etc. So I can yell out to someone, grab the orange bag, you know, or it's fairly obvious that this is for emergency purposes. Another thing you've got to work out is where you want to store this bag. You don't want it either one, packed away at the back of everything, so you've got to crawl through it to pull it out. You know, you don't want it down the back of your cargo barrier or something like that. You know, you don't want it dug well into the canopy. You want it easily accessible. And the other thing is, if you're camping, you don't want to be moving it all the time. So if you open your door to pull out your kitchen, you don't want to have to move this bag out of the way. The idea is it's easily accessible when you need it, but relatively, you know, forgettable, set and forget, and you're not having to mentally deal with it all the time. Third consideration is you want everyone to be able to reach it, or as many occupants of the vehicle to be able to reach it as quick as they can. So for that reason, I put it behind the center console on the floor in the rear seats. So that way anyone, if you've got 4 people in the wagon, can grab it and bug out. Good place to put a bit of extra weight, you know, in the middle between the wheel arches, and having this nice square bag that fits snugly in that recess, you know, it also works out well. Whereas if you had a backpack, it could be a bit more awkward in working out how to seat it. Let's talk about things that you may consider putting in this kit, which I haven't shown. Number 1, personal locator beacon. Again, my favorite. So I've decided to put it in my center console and not in this kit because it's still equally accessible by everyone in the car, but I remember to test it more often when it's there, and I just have done it from day dot. Another great spot for your PLB, of course, could be if it doesn't get too hot in your car, mounted on Velcro on your ceiling. I think those are all good options. So in your bag, in your grab bag, you know, in your center console, maybe your glove box if you don't have rear passengers, and mounted somewhere that you can just grab it. UHF radio. So just like torches and multi-tools, these are something that people tend to collect. You might have an old 1 watter, maybe an old half watter, and you know, it's just gathering dust. Why not charge it up, put it in this kit? You never know. So if you lose your UHF, if you've got even a small UHF on scan, you might be able to pick up emergency services or rescue chatter, and that may lead to you getting rescued sooner. Also, you might pick up other parties in the area, and you may also get help sooner. First aid kit. It is the pigeon pair, the mate of the grab bag. You'll notice I haven't included any first aid stuff, particularly in the grab bag. This is always right next to the grab bag. So usually the grab bag sits on the ground, the first aid kit sits on top, or vice versa. So consider how your first aid kit is positioned relative to your grab bag and how easily accessible they are together. Water. All right. I haven't included an emergency water in this kit. The reason for that is, again, I carry a lot of my water around where I carry the grab bag. Under the seats, I carry at least 6 litres, and I usually have another 5 litres on either side at the kids' feet or where those passenger seats are. If you wanted, you could have a 1 litre, 2 litre, 3 litre emergency water within the kit. I've got a lot of stuff here and spaces at a premium. If that was more empty, maybe I'd consider carrying a little bit of water in there, but as it stands, I think I don't need to, but definitely consider whether you want to store water in your grab bag. The two situations that I can think of that might lead to the use of this kit, the two main ones are probably fire and flood, or a water crossing gone wrong. So with that in mind, let's talk about the first one, flood. It's important to keep this kit relatively waterproofed. So this canvas bag is pretty good at that. It's not going to be perfect, but I'm pretty happy that it's quite water resistant. And then I've gone ahead and things that I want to definitely keep dry, I've put in separate bags. So consider waterproofing your kit, because it may be pouring with rain when this emergency happens and you've got to get out, and you want to make sure that what needs to stay dry stays dry. And fire, if you've got a fire extinguisher and you're able to extinguish the fire or extinguish it by a fire blanket or other means, then you eliminate the emergency altogether. So in terms of creating a tiered approach to this level of travel insurance, I wouldn't even consider this kit unless you've got a fire extinguisher in your car and a fire blanket. So yeah, eliminating the entire situation is going to be better than having to use this kit. So yeah, make sure you've got a fire extinguisher. I've got the Cap Industries fire extinguisher bracket in my Prado, which they don't make for the Prado anymore, but they do for a massive amount of vehicles. Go check that out, an Australian company that make a great product. I put this kit together in COVID. It was a great project to take my mind off things. I enjoyed thinking about the different elements and everything that's gone into it. I know it's not for everyone, but I guess I've got an inherent interest in it, doing scouts, cadets, then Army Reserve, infantry stuff. This bushcraft and survival stuff I enjoy thinking about. But really, this is just another layer of insurance for me, for the people I love, so that when I'm going on trips, I can feel confident that nothing bad or nothing dire is going to happen to me. So that's really what it's about. You could say this is unnecessary, but really, I'd rather have this than not have it. And that's why I want to share it with you. All right, I promised 5 items that I would take to condense this kit right down and where I'd start. In no particular order, because it's all quite important, although number 1's probably the most important. I'm taking water purification tablets. Number 2, I'm taking a tarp. Number 3, I'm going to take my Leatherman multi-tool. Number 4, I'm going to take fire starters. So I'm going to combine the fire starters and matches in that as one there. And lastly, I'm taking an emergency survival blanket. Once you distill down the purpose of all this kit, this is what I land on. You can have a shelter, you can stay warm, you can light a fire, you can build stuff, and you can have safe drinking water. And this would easily fit in a dry bag, slot somewhere under your seat, relatively inexpensive too. So consider putting this in your full drive, even if I've not convinced you that this other stuff's important, I'd go with this. If you disagree and there's other things you'd take and swap out of these 5 items, let me know. I'd love to have a conversation about it. I'm sure many of you will say that this bag is unnecessary, and I hope that I never get to prove you wrong. I made another video, if you like this one, about emergency preparation for our Simpson Desert trip this year. So check that one out next, and you can subscribe to the channel here. Thanks guys, see you soon.